India's geography, climate, and the monsoon. India, a subcontinent or a peninsula? A subcontinent is a smaller piece of land that is part of a larger continent, yet has some differences that earn a separate designation. While physically connected, subcontinents usually have different geography, cultures, and even rest on different tectonic plates than the main continent. India's culture is uniquely their own. They experience a climate unlike most of Asia, and this massive landmass rests solely on its own Indian plate. However, others call India a peninsula. This is a piece of land that is surrounded by water on three sides. The Bay of Bengal sits on India's east, the Arabian Sea to its west, and the Indian Ocean to the south. Is India a peninsula or a subcontinent? While it depends mainly on who you talk to, but India is actually both. India's rivers. India's rivers are crucial to daily life. They provide fresh drinking water, water for crops, and even electricity for the 1.1 billion Indians that now inhabit the region. Two of India's greatest rivers are the Ganges and the Indus. The source of both rivers rests high up in the Himalaya Mountains. Here, glaciers and snow melt to provide the flow of water for India's rivers. As the water rushes down the mountainside, it fans out into a wide plain known as the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Due to the flooding and the silt left behind, soil is very rich here. Also, this has led to the area being very densely populated. The Ganges River is in eastern India. It starts in the Himalayas and it empties in the Bay of Bengal. The Indus River is in western India. It starts in the Himalayas and it empties in the Arabian Sea. Do you notice that the heavily concentrated areas of the people in India's northern and northeastern sections? This is a result of the favorable conditions in the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So you can see that the dark red color is where the most people live, and the lighter the color gets, that means less and less people live there. So you can tell where the darker red colors are the areas of India where they have the rich soil and a good flow of water from their rivers. The Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau is located in central India and covers approximately 43% of its landmass. That's almost 50%, which is almost half. Like all plateaus, this area is flat and at a higher elevation than surrounding areas. The plateau is generally a very dry region. However, seasonal rain allows for farmers to grow grains, beans, cotton, and a variety of medicinal plants and herbs. Today, farmers use around 60% of the plateau for crop cultivation, and the remaining 40% is reserved for animal grazing. So animal grazing means animals being able to freely roam around and eat. India's mountains. Mountains are formed as a result of tectonic plates pushing themselves together. This is called a convergent plate boundary, and when this happens, there is nowhere for the land to go but up. This is what created the largest mountain range in the world, the Himalaya Mountains. The word Himalaya translates to mean home of snow because its tallest peaks, due to their altitude, have snow year-round. If you want to, at this point, you can pause the video, go to YouTube and search for a video of the tectonic plates pushing themselves together and forming a mountain if you want to see a visual of that. Do you see how the Indian and Eurasian plates are pushing against each other? This action is what causes mountains to form, and when you already have mountains, it makes them higher. Its highest peak, also the highest mountain in the world, is Mount Everest and is over 29,000 feet tall. Due to the continued force exerted at the convergent plate boundary, Everest continues to grow taller by around 5 centimeters per year. So if you didn't know already, Mount Everest is actually located in India. India has another set of mountains known as the Ghats. that surround the Deccan Plateau on both the east and west coast. Both the eastern and western Ghats are very fertile, but for different reasons. The summer monsoon brings moisture from the Arabian Sea to the western Ghats, while the eastern Ghats serves as a watershed for many of India's great rivers. India's southern border has mountains on both sides, the western and eastern Ghats. So you can see in this photo or in this picture exactly how they're situated in the country of India. Whereas rainfall helps grow crops in the west, annual floods help the east. Wildlife in both ranges is very diverse. Many medicinal plants habitat the area, and elephants, leopards, and tigers all dot the landscape, which means that they all live all over the country. India's southern border has mountains on both sides, like I said before, the western and eastern Ghats. So now let's talk about the monsoons. Monsoons are strong, violent windstorms that change directions based on the season. These have a dramatic impact to India's climate as they bring rainfall to different parts of the subcontinent based on the time of year. While Indian farmers rely on the seasonal monsoon to bring rainfall, it is important to know that a monsoon only refers to the changing of the wind pattern. So many times when we think of a monsoon, we think of it being very wet, rainy, windy, almost like a hurricane. But the monsoon actually is just talking about the wind, not necessarily the rain. So like I just mentioned, people often associate monsoons with severe rainstorms like the one above. However, a monsoon only refers to the violent wind that changes direction with the season. There are dry monsoons too. India's summer monsoons. The summer monsoon is most associated with the heavy rainfall that it brings in the peninsula between April and October. As the winter months come to an end, the weather pattern begins to shift. Air from the southwest begins to blow towards the northeast. As the air blows across the Indian Ocean, it picks up moisture. Once it reaches the Indian subcontinent, torrential rainfall begins across the land as the air cannot hold any more moisture. In the summer, air currents travel across India from the southwest. The current brings moisture from the Indian Ocean and drops it over India, causing heavy rainfall at times. Because of this, the summer monsoon is the wet monsoon in India. So you can see this map here gives us a very clear indication of the direction of the monsoon winds. India's summer monsoons. Farmers love the summer monsoons because it brings much needed rainfall to grow their crops. Dairy farmers rely on the monsoon to keep their cows healthy and well fed. Since a great deal of electricity is produced by hydroelectric power plants, water powered, businesses, government officials, and schools also rely on the summer monsoon. The summer monsoon brings much needed rainfall for crops. The water power provided by the monsoon gives hundreds of thousands access to electricity. The summer monsoon can be just as destructive as it is beneficial. Streets flood, mudslides can bury villages, and people are killed. Torrential rains create mudslides that can swallow up entire villages. And you can see how damaging that can be in those photos. So now let's talk about India's winter monsoons. Once summer passes and fall arrives, the summer monsoon is replaced with the winter monsoon. The winter monsoon arrives in October and lasts until April. The wind pattern shifts almost in a complete reversal. In winter, the wind blows from the northeast to the southwest. The winter monsoons are much less powerful than the summer variety, mainly because the Himalaya mountains block the wind and moisture from reaching India. In the winter, air current reverses and travels across India from the northeast. Most of the water vapor falls in the massive Himalayan mountains, which then brings dry air into India. Because of this, the winter monsoon is the dry monsoon in India. So you can see here that the arrows are pointing the other way, which means the wind is actually blowing in the opposite direction for the winter monsoons. And you can also see, according to the key here, the dark shade, the black, is heavy rainfall, and then the lighter it is means very light, and you can see that it is very light rainfall, meaning that this is the dry monsoon, not the wet monsoon. Due to this, it is common for most of India to experience droughts during this time of the year. Throughout the north and west of India, vegetation begins to die off and the soil begins to crack like a desert during the winter monsoon. However, the East Coast does receive average rainfall during the winter monsoon. Why? The air is able to pick up moisture in the Bay of Bengal, that is, and then dropped into India's eastern Ghats. So you can see in this photo that this is what the ground looks like when it cracks from the dry, heavy winds.